Midweek greetings to you all out there. You are welcome to this midweek edition of your number one news magazine program, Press Brief, on this day, Wednesday, the 22nd of September 2020. On this edition, we'll be starting with this wise words from one of us in the person of Winston Churchill, who equally doubles as the British Prime Minister. He says, diplomacy is the art of telling people to go to hell in such a way they ask for direction. That is what is coming from a journalist in the person of Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. To the viewers, with that wise word from Winston Churchill, I say you once again, you are welcome to the program. The program will be unraveling in a short while after this. It's with that I say you all are welcome to the program this day on the 22nd of September. It's what happens to be a Wednesday. We're going to be starting with a copy of the Newswatch newspaper. Newswatch newspaper says, after killing of 15 soldiers in Bamising in the northwest region, uncertainty as military vows to crush amber boys and protect civilians. That is what you can find as banner for Newswatch newspaper for today. Still the same paper, it says northwest and southwest reconstruction plan of the head of state, government short of cash as only 10 billion CFA francs is available out of the 98 billion raised. And get to read that story on page 3. Let's move over to Camtel, where the parastatals say Camtel is not shaken by detractors as Blue Brown makes inroads. So that is what you can find on that said paper. We'll move over to the CBC, who has been praised for the education department of that said institution, as they say the school complex in Bafusam is quite an edifice. We'll take you to the southwest region to the Manfe Acquire stretch of roads, where the Minister of Public Works in the person of Emmanuel Ganujumisi says the construction work of that road will be anytime soon. Let's wrap up with this one from Yaoundé, where pastors uses football tournament to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Get to read that story and more on that set paper. We remain in Yaoundé this time around with a copy of the English Daily, the Guardian Post of Christian Garb, that says, on mission to evaluate measure national dialogue recommendations and implementation, Southwest population defies lockdown, gives Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Dion NGUTE's heroes welcome. That is what you can find on the English Daily for this morning. In the same paper, this one says 50% of Anglophone crisis are internally displaced persons risk sexual violence and trafficking. That was a report that was made known to the Guardian Post for this morning. We'll move over to this one, where they say Biya urged to decree a day of mourning for the soldiers who died in Gokotunja in the northwest region. Get to read that story on that set paper. We'll take you to L'Essentiel. L'Essentiel for this morning comes back to this one from the contribution of the National Social Insurance Fund to small and medium-sized enterprises in the country. That is what the French daily L'Essentiel tells us for this morning, and it says it's a good insurance policy of that said state corporation. Still in the same paper, we'll move over to the Douala Port Authority, where they say the representative of the Douala Port Authority will be in meeting in Yaoundé. Get to read that story on page 5 to page 7 on this edition of that set paper. We'll take you to the sports page, where they say the Indomitable Lionesses has been crowned champions of the African Volleyball Championship in Kigali, Rwanda. We'll remain in Yaoundé with a copy of Reality Plus newspaper. The French Daily for this morning comes back to the important need of distribution of good medical gadgets to the various regional hospitals by the military force. So get to read that story on that set paper. We'll take you to Akonolinga, the central region, where they say it's an emergency call for the group of Yukagulu, who they are calling on the population of the north over there in Yukaduma to give more emphasis on their roads network and forestry products. We'll take you to the newspaper of Victor Cham municipal updates for this morning. That comes back to the visit of the Prime Minister to the Southwest region. It says PM tells Southwest population time to rethink and rebuild. That is what you can find as caption on this edition of municipal updates. Still the same paper, this other one says hope bills for imminent take-off of the Limbe Deep Sea ports. Get to read that story on that set paper. And it comes back to this other story that says major challenges at municipal updates soon. Get to read this and more on that set paper. We delve into the economic newspaper for this day, publication from Douala Quotidian Economy, newspaper that talks about the development of the country, and went further to say the United Nations organization gives more emphasis on priority projects for the country Cameroun. Get to read that story on that set paper. We take you to the national railway carrier known as Kmer. This is 2020-2021. Kmer has actually bought some 38 new wagons that have been put to the disposal of that said institution. Let's move over to this other one that comes back to the launching phase of a new hotel that will be constructed in Douala, known as Hilton Vast, where they say construction work will be done immediately after the launching of that structure. From Douala, we take you to Yaoundé to meet Fish d'Afrique newspaper. Fish d'Afrique newspaper for this morning says the three northern regions. It says Muhammadu Bayuru Fadil gives Issa Chiruma no sleep. That is regarding the cross-carpeting of some militants of Issa Chiruma's National Salvation Front Party, who say they are not belonging to the CPDM political party over there in the northern regions of the country. Move over to Ayos in the central region, where Bondongo Mbiko, they say he is the man who actually heads the subsection of the CPDM over there in the central region. Remaining Yaoundé this time around with the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Celestin Kecha Cortez, who will unravel the Unity Monument over there at the Unity Palace roundabout over there in Yaoundé. Let's move over to Journal Identity for this morning that says the Olympic Sports Complex is far from completion. That is what Journal Identity for this morning tells us. Stay in the same paper. The paper says the cabinet that will be shaken in the days ahead due to several controversies. That story, you want to find it on page 6 to page 7 on this edition of Journal Identity. And we'll talk about Cam Water. This one says the performance rates of Cam Water have been held regarding the supply of potable water to households in Cameroun. We'll move over to the hot newspaper Eco Sante for this morning comes back to the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. It says Manauna Malachi evaluate the various disposition and hygienic situation of most educational facility in the country. That is story, you can read it on page 2 on that set paper. Still in the same health newspaper, Eco Sante for this morning, the paper comes back to give more emphasis on the practice of the profession of pharmaceutical products in the country. So that is what you can find on page 3 for this morning. We'll move over to the newspaper of Haman Mana Loju for this morning comes back to the importation of Cameroun of certain commodities. So they say what is actually happening in the importation sector, and why is Cameroun over importing products from foreign countries. That story completes herself on page 2 to page 3 on the newspaper of Haman Mana Loju. Sinesem Loju, this says Fake Food Samuel Eto'o declares himself candidate for the top job of presidency of that institution. We'll move over to this other story from the set paper that comes back to passports in the country. It gives the modalities that is engaged in that acquisition of passports in Cameroun. We'll be moving up north this time around with the newspaper Lloyd Sahel. The newspaper from the northern part of the country says far north, some 22,062 persons are under antiretroviral drugs over there in the far north region. That is the fight against HIV and AIDS. We'll take you to the Marwa One Council, where this says Jarino threatens the erosion. That's the river. Jarino threatens erosion over there in the Marwa One Council. Will remain in Marwa, where this one comes back to business persons over there in Marwa, who they have been putting up a resistance. So get Get to read that story from the northern part of the country on page 9. We'll take you to Douala to meet quotidian emergence. Quotidian emergence for this morning comes back to the war in the southwest and northwest region. It says Paul Biya reaffirms that the military option is the only way out. That's what the private French bilingual daily tells us for this morning. Still the same paper on page 2, the paper says promoting excellence. Cameroonian John Kengasong amongst the world's most influential person. Just to reiterate, John Kengasong, who happens to hail from Lebialem division in the southwest region, heads the African Center for Disease Control known as the CDC. We'll move over to the fight against inflation in the country. It says the back of Central African state gives some 100 billion CFA francs to the state coffers of some countries in the sub-region. We'll be moving over to cyber criminality. It says some 5,000 persons have been locked up due to cyber criminality in the country. That story completes herself on page 9. Let's move over to the French daily of late Pius Njawe, Le Messager. Le Messager for today comes back to say Fekafoot elections. Samuel Eto'o answers the people's call. That's a caption you can find on the French daily Le Messager newspaper of late Pius Njawe. Still in the same paper, the paper says bets were some 15 million CFA francs have been put in their disposal for the developmental issues of that set municipality. We'll move over to this other story from the said paper that says some school kits were donated by members of the police corps. Get to read that story on that said paper. Let's dive into Mutation for this morning. Mutation for this morning says the poster of the various it says the manifestation of September 22nd March. It says the poster of the various technical advisors. So that is what the newspaper Mutation, the French daily, tells us for this morning. We'll move over to the Ministry of Health meeting Manaona Malachi, who says there is an alert on the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Get to read that story on that said paper. We'll move over to the northwest region in the city of Bamenda, where they say Operation Bamenda Clean. It says Operation Bamenda Clean, the discourse of 2 weeks after. That is what the French daily tells us on Operation Bamenda Clean for this morning. Let's move over to Yaoundé to meet the National Bilingual Daily Cameroun Tribune newspaper of Marie-Claire Nana that says the northwest and southwest region, the Prime Minister on the territory. That is what the National Bilingual Daily Cameroun Tribune told us for this morning. Same the same paper. It says volleyball African Championship. That's volleyball. Cameroon's Indomitable Lions backs the African champions for the continent. Still in the same paper. This one says First Lady donating to new babies. Get to read that story on page 7, page 9, page 16 to page 17 on the National Bilingual Daily Cameroun Tribune for this morning. Still in the same paper, we'll talk about this other one that comes back to the refurbishing of the Cameroonian economy. That story completes herself on page 12 to page 13 on the National Bilingual Daily. We'll delve into the newspaper of William Eto'o, that is Cameroon Echo. Cameroon Echoes for this morning says Southwest Region Peace Builder PM Dion NGUTE Arise Boya. That is what you can find on that set paper. Cameroon's Echo. Still in the same paper, this one says Onzian Youth Conap soon. Get to read that story on that set paper. In the build up to this other one from the Limbe 2 Council, it says Limbe 2 mayor's candidates win section president for FACO 1B. Get to read that story on that set paper. We'll move over to this other one from the set paper that talks about the RCCI International Bible Institute in Limbe that graduates her first batch of students. That story you can find it on Cameroon Echoes for this morning. Let's move into in-depth news for today. In-depth news for today talks about the massacre of soldiers in Bamising and Kikai-Kikom in the northwest region. It says military vows to crush General No Pity and gangs. There to read that story on this edition of In-Depth News for today. We'll move over to this other story regarding the reconstruction of the northwest and southwest regions by President Paul Biya. It says rebuilding war-ravaged Anglophones region. Paul Tarsong highlights little significant steps in reconstruction efforts. That story completes itself on page 3. We'll delve into this other story that says on World Peace Day, Dion NGUTE sues for peace in the troubled Anglophone regions. That is what you can find on page 11 on this edition of In-Depth News. We'll wrap up with this other story from the set paper that says, don't thump your faces in the open. There's no solution. That pronouncement was made by one of the government officials who gave that outing over there in that set newspaper. Televisors will put a wrap on this edition of the program. News for this day. We are so sorry for the second part not to come your way because of some inconveniences that was brought by our guests who are supposed to join us in this edition of the program. We urge you to stay, continue watching the same station as more interesting programs will be coming your way, and the program will be yours as a rebroadcast from 12:30 Cameroun time and 10:30 GMT+1, better still known as Cameroun time. For me, I say bye bye.